Then Diddy instructed Christina to insert what looked like a syringe up Ashley's vag. Then something went wrong. Whatever was a part of their plan with this syringe, Christina wasn't doing it right, so Diddy started inserting it himself. Christina and Jane Doe decide to leave, and so now Ashley is alone with Diddy, Shane, John Doe number 1 and 2. Next, Diddy picks up a television remote that's nearby and starts violently inserting it into Ashley. Ashley is hysterically crying and screaming, and Diddy instructs Shane to flip her over on her stomach because he doesn't want to see or hear none of that. Diddy then instructed Shane to put a pillow over her head to muffle some of the screams, and then Shane proceeded to R-word her anally. Wow, what a difference a day makes. If you were thoroughly confused by this situation and just needed a little clarification, you are in the right place, because I too am a civil law attorney. I practice specifically in the niche area of family law, but since I sue people for a living, I know exactly what's going on. Now, my lawsuits usually come in the form of a divorce, sometimes custody, sometimes some other things, and we have our own niche cutout rules for family law, but procedurally, we all follow the rules of civil procedure. Now, the settlement. I was not expecting it to come so quickly, but was I expecting it to come? Yes. As a layperson, meaning that you're not in this field, I can understand how this could be a little confusing, maybe a little suspicious, but that is why you came to me, because you know I'm going to give you the real from A to Z. So buckle up. First and foremost, I need you guys to understand that settlements are very normal in this industry. I knew one was going to happen. I just wasn't expecting it this soon. For instance, let's say I filed 50 lawsuits this year. I filed a lot more than that, but just for the sake of easy numbers. Out of those 50 cases, maybe 5 or 10 of those are actually going to make it all the way to trial. Which goes back to my point how most cases end in a settlement, and I'll tell you why. Most people don't want their case to go all the way to trial, because your business will be in the street. To really prepare for a strong case, especially in civil law, where we're talking about a lot of money involved, in my cases, people, kids, houses, retirement, it takes about a good 6 months or maybe even more, depending on all the issues, to really develop a solid case. To see a trial all the way through, you have no idea how many people I got to involve in this lawsuit, all the subpoenas that I will send out for witnesses, a deposition. We haven't even touched on discovery. Just think back to the Peanut case. If you don't know who Peanut is, I suggest you go find out. The video is pinned at the top. You think when I started subpoenaing the hoochies, the pastor, the mama, the accountant, you think they went to trial? No. It is quite obvious to me that Cassie had an amazing case, and Diddy didn't want half of that information to come out. Well, how do I know? Well, this trial could easily cost $500,000 into the millions. Diddy is almost a billionaire. The amount of money it would have cost him to fund this trial would have been just like him ordering a cheeseburger. It would have been nothing. If I'm a billionaire and you're accusing me of doing God knows what with God knows who, and it's not true, oh, trust me, I'm taking you down all the way through trial. You better ask Johnny. Defamation. But if I actually did it, I have way too much to lose to let that tea come out, so I'm going to do whatever I need to do to hush you, and quickly. Y'all, the writing on the wall is so obvious, it's plain to see, at least to me. He's almost a billionaire. It would have cost him nothing to expose her for lying. But he chose the latter. All my trial attorneys out there, say it with me, put it in the comments. RFPs, request for production, honey, it is a guilty man's worst nightmare. Y'all, just one RFP on that phone's record and data, and we would have had 10 documentaries lined up. All in all, this is the swiftest settlement I've ever seen. Pretty smart for Diddy, and I'm happy for Cassie. She gets the money she was asking for without having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on the trial to get it. Go ahead, girl. But let's discuss the elephant in the room. Can charges still be pressed? Can Diddy still ultimately go to jail? Could he? The answer is yes. Now, I'm not sure what the statute of limitations are for sexual assault in this state, but what we do know is in that lawsuit, she also claimed that there was sex trafficking. And you know what I hear when I hear the word sex trafficking? Feds! Yo, feds! The federales might be on their way. It's possible, but we'll see. I have several points that I want to ask you now, and I want us to address this in the comments. First and foremost, I want you to ask yourself, have there ever been one time where Cassie was ever considered problematic? Then I want hands in the comments of how many times you've heard an allegation about Diddy. And for the skeptics about the settlement agreement, I want to ask you, if you were a billionaire and someone was wrongfully accusing you of the heinous things that Cassie is accusing of Diddy, and it will cost you basically nothing to be able to prove your innocence because of how much money you have, would you cough up millions of dollars to make this go away in just 19 hours? Baby oil and lube. Let's just get down to the bottom of it. Where do I begin? I shouldn't even be on here. I have a trial tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., but I love y'all, so let's get into it. So we all heard about Diddy getting arrested this week, and y'all, they dropped the indictment. Fun fact, when you hear the term charge, think district attorney, state level. When you hear the term indictment, think of grand jury, the feds. And it is not looking good for him. You guys, Diddy is going to prison. Because here's one thing we know about federal prosecutors. Hey, y'all. Because you know they always watching. And a few of them are my law school classmates. So their conviction rate is about 96%. And another thing we just know about federal prosecutors is they don't show up until they already got you. So let's say, for instance, there's a burglary and then the district attorney presses formal charges. Once the burglar has already been charged, that's when the DA gets to work. But not the feds. Not the feds. The feds watch you and watch you closer and closer and closer. They don't show up to arrest you until they have everything they need. And the feds are a very patient group of people. They will watch you for years and just gather and gather and gather. That's why the conviction rate is so high. They will sit on something forever until they have what they need. Shall we take a closer look into this indictment? Of course we shall. Mr. Combs is charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now let's start off with the racketeering because that indeed is the most juiciest one. Why? Because racketeering is rare. You don't hear people get charged with that every day, but when you do hear about it, the conviction rate is almost 100%. For racketeering, you basically have to have an enterprise. You have the head of the operation, the boss, the king, the head honcho. Then you have all the lower level people, but everyone is a part of a bigger scheme. And usually it's involving fraud, extortion, bribery, violence. One thing we know about a racketeering charge means that the feds had to have people who are a part of the enterprise to start flipping on each other, to start snitching. Because you cannot have racketeering without a group. It's a whole organization. So one thing we know for sure, Diddy's people is talking to the feds. And they're doing it to get a lesser charge, maybe less jail time, because we already know their conviction rate. Them people don't want to sit in jail all their life. Now let's see what they've been saying. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise have engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for the purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Why y'all setting stuff on fire? Anyways, Combs, with the assistance of the members and associates of the enterprise, transported commercial sex workers across state lines intentionally for freak-off parties. Freak-offs occur regularly, sometimes lasting multiple days, and often involve multiple commercial sex workers. Wait a minute. Multiple days. During the freak-offs, Combs would distribute a variety of controlled substances to keep the victims obedient and compliant. And sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs would videotape the sexual acts. After the freak-offs, Combs would provide the victims with IV fluids to help recover them from physical exertion and drug use. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise booked the hotel rooms, stocked the hotel rooms in advance with baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. He wanted to be able to see you clearly. During and separate from these freak-offs, Combs, among other things, would hit, kick, throw objects, and drag his victims sometimes by the hair. Combs would threaten his victims' careers and livelihood if they resisted and participated in the freak-offs. Victims believed that they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking financial or job security or without experiencing some type of physical or emotional abuse. Combs would also blackmail his victims by using sensitive, embarrassing, or incriminating videos made during the freak-offs as collateral to ensure their continued obedience and silence. Y'all, it ain't looking too good. On just the racketeering alone, he's facing a minimum of 15 years to life. And like I said earlier, the Fed's conviction rate on racketeering, this man 54 years old. He is facing more jail time than what he got left here on this side of heaven. And what y'all think about those guns they found where the serial number was scratched off? Do y'all think he killed Tupac? Well, anywho, his bail was denied and he surely tried everything he could to get that bail granted. He offered to turn over his passports to his attorney and he tried to sell his private jet, but nobody wanted it. Please let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. I'm gonna go finish getting ready for my trial tomorrow. I gotta deal with people trying to get custody yet failing drug tests for meth. Oh, and if you missed the announcement, I am now taking uncontested cases in Houston. And of course, for all over Texas, you can hire me for your drafting needs for your case. Or maybe if you want representation at mediation or when you get that attorney general letter in the mail. This is the point where I usually tell you to grab a cocktail, but this time I'm asking you to grab some tissue and definitely your earphones. Ashley Parham is the newest plaintiff to file suit against Diddy, but she also is suing a few others. She's also suing Christina Coram, here she is, Shane Pierce, and 3 John Does and 1 Jane Doe. And for those who don't know, John Doe and Jane Doe is a fictitious name that is used when the person's real name is unknown or being concealed. What we do know about these people is that Christina is an employee of Diddy. She's also known as his right-hand woman. And Shane, unfortunately, is someone that Ashley considered to be a friend. Back in February of 2018, Shane and Ashley met. He actually came to her rescue as she was getting into an altercation with another man at a bar. After the whole ordeal, a bunch of people are standing outside the bar talking, and then Shane decides to FaceTime Diddy, kind of showing everyone, look who my friend is, I'm important. Ashley kind of makes a face and is completely unimpressed and makes a statement on how she believes that Diddy has something to do with Tupac's death. Diddy, who's still on FaceTime, overheard the comment that Ashley made and told her she would pay for saying that. So after this whole ordeal at the bar, Shane and Ashley become friends and they keep in touch. March 2018 rolls around and Shane calls Ashley and asks her to come over to help him take his cancer medication. He said he was too weak to open the bottles. Little did Ashley know this is actually a setup and potentially about to be one of the worst days of her life. After she arrives, they make small talk. He tells her how he just got this new car and he wants to give her a spin. Now we know hindsight is 20/20, but this is a sign. How you too weak to open medicine, but you well enough to drive? Nonetheless, they head for a little spin in his car and head back onto the house. Once back inside his apartment, she notices that he leaves the door slightly open, so she mentions it to him and he says, oh, the door's been tripping. I told maintenance about it. They should be fixing it soon. About 10 minutes later, guess who comes right on in? You guessed it, Diddy. Oh, but he doesn't come alone. He's there with Christina and also his bodyguard. The bodyguard is named as John Doe number 1. Also, Jane Doe is there, another woman who she does not know, but she describes her to be in her 30s with blonde hair. And John Doe number 2 and 3 are there, who's supposedly a friend of Diddy and Shane's and also Diddy's driver. According to the lawsuit, John Doe number 3, the driver never came inside, he stayed in the car. Ashley states that Diddy immediately started to antagonize her about the comments she made about Tupac. He started walking towards her with the knife, held it up to the right side of her face and said that he should give her a Glasgow smile. If you don't know what that is, it usually is when the victim gets a cut on each side of their mouth all the way to their ears. Then Christina urged Diddy to stop, suggesting that it wouldn't be a good idea. They could just sell her to one of their clients. Then Christina went on to threaten Ashley and said she would ship her off to anywhere in the world and she would never see her family again. Diddy and Shane then proceeded to strip Ashley of all her clothing. They pulled a bottle out of a bag and started pouring that liquid all over her. She was in fear at first, thinking that it was some kind of chemical, but then she soon realized that it was baby oil. Then Diddy instructed Christina to insert what looked like a syringe up Ashley's vag. Then something went wrong. Whatever was a part of their plan with this syringe, Christina wasn't doing it right, so Diddy started inserting it himself. Christina and Jane Doe decide to leave, and so now Ashley is alone with Diddy, Shane, John Doe number 1 and 2. Next, Diddy picks up a television remote that's nearby and starts violently inserting it into Ashley. Ashley is hysterically crying and screaming, and Diddy instructs Shane to flip her over on her stomach because he doesn't want to see or hear none of that. Diddy then instructed Shane to put a pillow over her head to muffle some of the screams, and then Shane proceeded to R-word her anally. After Shane, then Diddy, John Doe number 1, and John Doe number 2 all took turns doing the same. She also stated that before John Doe started, he doused her with more oil and then jumped on her back as if she was a slip and slide, which knocked the wind out of her because he was a large person. She also stated that while John Doe number 1 was doing this to her, that Diddy was sitting in a chair in the room masturbating and filming. During this whole ordeal, John Doe's phone falls near the bed. She tries to reach for it but can't grab it, and she says Diddy starts laughing and says he owns her now. She stated that by the time it was over, she could not move and she had no control over her bodily functions. At some point, Christina comes back into the room and starts giving Ashley an IV. I think that this is a good spot to end this video. I don't want it to get too long, and we're not even halfway through the lawsuit. So let me know what you think thus far in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.